Hello, my name's Hemingway Jones and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to speak about the legendary Montblanc Meisterstück 149 fountain pen. So we're going to run through the history of this pen, what it's like to write with it, and how to go about buying one, and what is the best way to buy one. And it might not be what you think, so please stay tuned till the end to get that. I just want to take a quick break and ask for a favor. Would you please just like this video, leave me a comment, let me know what you think of the Meisterstück. Anything you can do to help me grow this channel, I'd appreciate it. Thanks. Let's have a look at the Montblanc website. Let's see which nibs they have available currently. Well, there's a medium, and fine and broad looks like it's sold out. However, you can get this in a variety of nibs, including some obliques and the calligraphy nib, which is also available from time to time. So the Montblanc Meisterstück 149 is a very large pen. But don't let that hold you back. There are some advantages. For one thing, often when you're using a slim pen, your fingers have to group together, and that gives you a bit of a cramped writing posture. Whereas a larger pen, your hand almost cradles it, and you're not pinching so much as guiding it. And it gives you such a much more comfortable writing position. And I find I can write far longer and with much less pain and cramping with this pen as opposed to a much slimmer pen. So the larger size should not be seen necessarily as a detriment. You should try it out because you never know how a pen is going to feel in your hand until you try it. And fortunately with Montblanc, they have a ton of boutique stores everywhere. So let's talk about the most important thing. How does this pen write? Well, it's very smooth and there's very little feedback. It's like it has this amazing suspension system that just guides you over all the bumps in the road. Now, some people don't like that, but I love it personally. I'm not a big feedback guy. So if you're on a quest for the smoothest pen, this is definitely a fantastic option. Now, another thing about it is that the nib is incredibly responsive to pressure. And I mean very small differences in pressure will give you an entirely different line. So the slightest pressure gives you a thin line, and a little bit more will give you a thicker line. This takes a little bit to get used to, and it is a really neat feature, and once you master it, you can get quite a bit of line variation. So we should talk a little bit about Montblanc as a brand. Montblanc has all sorts of luxury associations. It's probably more well known nowadays for its fragrances and even its watches than for its writing instruments, but the roots of the company are firmly entrenched in pens. The first Montblanc pen was sold in 1910, the first Meisterstück in 1924. So the legacy goes back for over 100 years. Their first pens were designed to be simple and easy to use. And I would say that has retained to this day, because one of the beautiful things about this pen is that it's piston filled, so you don't have to disassemble it in order to fill it. Many people like converters. Converters do have the advantage that they are easy to clean and you can simply discard them if they get stained and replace it with a new one for relatively small money. With a pen like this, very well made, it's easy to flush it and to clean it and to keep it writing. So Montblanc's trademark was registered in 1910, and it's emblematic of the highest mountain in Europe, Mont Blanc. And it's right here on the cap. You can see this rounded pointed star to look like the glacier top of that mountain. It's really quite distinctive and quite beautiful. And on some of the vintage pens, you'll even find it at the back. As a design, the Meisterstück was developed in the 1920s, so it has that Art Deco aesthetic. You can see it in the almost Zeppelin-like shape. They call it a cigar shape of the pen, which tapers nicely. And once again, it has quite a bit of girth, so it feels very good in your hand. The cap is a bit oversized and is beautifully appointed with gold in this case. 3 bands of gold here that say the Montblanc name, and a really nice gold clip. Now this current example, my pen, I've owned for about 10 years, and this pen I carry with me almost every day. And if you look at it under a loupe, you can see some hairline scratches and things, just the sort of thing you would expect to see for a pen that's been with me this long, one that's rolled around on a desk or has been tossed in a bag. It's held up incredibly well. It is an incredibly robust pen. I've never had an issue with it. It writes every time. That's the amazing thing to me and the sign of a really good pen. You write with it and it's as smooth and silky as you would expect as when it was freshly inked. That's one of the things that's very, very impressive about the Meisterstück. I always post my pens, no problem with posting this. This pen is made of what they call precious resin, which is really a fancy name for proprietary plastic. However, it does feel really good in your hand. It has a warmth, and when you write extensively, it never gets clammy or feels sweaty in your hand like some plastic pens can. It certainly does have some kind of a quality that just feels really good as you write with it. And that's important. It's your individual experience with these writing instruments. It's going to bring out your creativity. If you feel good in how you write and with what you write with, you're going to produce better penmanship, better ideas even, because your mind is not distracted. And you are going to enjoy the process of writing that much more. And to me, it's all about the process. The Montblanc 149 is to fountain pens what the Rolex Submariner is to watches. It's the name that comes up all the time that many pens are compared to, and it's very much a standard with which other pens are judged against, fairly or not. And it also has a group of vocal haters who simply by the fact that it's expensive and the fact that it is a Montblanc, hate it or love it or whatever, have very strong polarizing feelings about it. And hey, I understand that. We're very passionate about our things. Either protectively, if you've put out $1,000, you certainly don't want to feel like you've bought something that's ridiculous. And if you feel like that kind of money is simply elitist and ridiculous for a writing instrument. However, there is an argument to be made. $1,000 is a lot of money. These are tools, and some of us make our living with these tools. So throughout my career, I've signed my name hundreds of times a day to authorize things. And I also take copious notes, and even now, I'll journal for at least 20 minutes a day. So having a comfortable pen that I'm familiar with, that feels good in my hand, is very important. And you have to make that decision for yourself, whether or not that is worth $1,000 to you. I mean, there's certainly different value propositions on anything. $10,000 watches to $1,000 pens. Is it worth it? Will you get enjoyment? Can you afford it? And of course, there is another way to get this pen. New, this pen goes for about $1,000. But if you buy a new pen, after about a month, unless you're incredibly careful with your pens, it's going to have some scratches here and there. Are scratches really worth double the price? Because you can find the Montblanc 149 for around $500 or $600 used. And that's through reputable pen companies. If you simply do the rounds, look online, and be patient, one of these will come up, and you can save a lot of money and get a pen in the condition that it's going to be in anyway after about 3 months of casual use. Would I spend $1,000 for it now? Well, I feel like I probably would, because I do get quite a bit of enjoyment out of it. But I would probably look into buying one secondhand. For $500 or $600, this pen is worth every penny. A couple of the features. The nib is rather oversized, which makes forming a word really nice. You can see the gold and the silver shining as you create a word. And maybe that's silly, but it's a very enjoyable experience, and you feel very much like you're tied into the history of its Art Deco roots. You almost feel like someone with very serious business to do. And then right at the end of the grip, there's a nice little ridge that tells your finger not to go beyond and feels quite comfortable. And my fingertip rests between that ridge and the threads for the cap. So the pen itself sits very nicely in my hand and feels quite comfortable. My second finger cradled beneath it, also resting against the ridges. And the pen, as I said, you don't have to choke down or pinch on it. You can simply guide it, and it makes for a very comfortable writing posture. It also has a nice amount of weight without being overly heavy. It certainly becomes lighter if you don't post, and many people don't. I personally feel like that's a bit short for not posting. The pen also has a nice window showing you the reservoir and how much ink you have left. The level of craftsmanship on this pen is extraordinary, as you would expect for the price. The cap fits snugly with no wiggle. There are no irregularities in any of the edges. The nib is precise and incredible in its smoothness and feel. This is the smoothest writing experience that I have. The gold is gorgeous, and even though it does scratch over time, as you would expect, it has not brassed or peeled off in 10 years. So it's quite a robust pen that can hold up to years of writing and mild abuse. So let's talk about some of the good and the bad and the indifferent. So pros, it feels really great in your hand. It's one of the best writing experiences that I know. The nib is oversized and beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful nibs that I've ever written with. It has a great history. The finish is amazing. The materials in it are great. I don't know what precious resin is. I suspect it's just plastic, but it does feel very good in your hand. And either way, I don't mind. It's a fantastic pen that writes amazing. Now on the cons, it's kind of boring. I didn't realize it came in burgundy. I don't think it came in burgundy when I got mine. But regardless, wouldn't you much rather have it in burgundy? I mean, this black design is classic, but it's a bit boring, right? It's a bit staid. If you want to spend $1,000 for a pen, it should be a little bit more dramatic than just black on gold. But regardless, it's classic, it's beautiful, it works. But that, I would say, is a bit of a negative. The other thing would have to be the price. It is expensive, and you have to decide for yourself whether or not it's worth it. I will say there's nothing else like it. It's a unique thing, the 149, and it costs $1,000 brand new. If you want it brand new, this is what you must pay. So you have to decide for yourself if that's worth it for something very distinctive. You can buy this pen from many of the online retailers. If you are serious about acquiring one of these, I recommend finding a used one. It's all part of the story of your pen. So all in all, it's an expensive pen, but it's a fantastic pen. Are there other pens like it? Well, there are. The Pilot Custom 823 is another great pen at $300 that is incredibly smooth, has a bit more feedback, but certainly on fit and finish and feel approaches the Montblanc Meisterstück. Even the Esterbrook Esty has the similar smoothness, maybe because of the Jowo nib, but I have that pen in medium and it writes similar to this. However, all things considered, this pen's history, its beautiful form, the way it writes, it is one of my favorite pens in my collection, and I'm very glad that I own it. So if you've enjoyed this video, please like it, leave me a comment, let me know what you'd like to see in future videos. Subscribe to the channel, and please share it with someone else who you think might enjoy it as well. I'm really trying to grow this channel, and I'd appreciate anything you could do to help. Thanks.